Yeah, it does feel like Grixis and the other red-based control decks are going to have a lot of spot removal, and Elves
Alright.
is going to be playing a lot of creatures. A lot of times, it you do have expendable creatures with
I'll keep.
Elves where you're just trying to reach a critical mass of little dudes and then overrun.
I will also keep. I
Or
will
be able to
not.
cast a card like Collected Company off of the mana you're generating from your creatures early. But
Okay.
I am
You're good?
definitely, I think Quinton's favored in this matchup. It's not, I would say heavily favored, but it's not unwinnable by Elves because
Ready to go?
Grixis is going to have to do a lot of damage to themselves, and
You want me to begin?
sometimes you can
Game?
just,
Okay.
chip in with
Go
some
ahead.
Elves after the rest are dead and be able to reduce your opponent's life total to 0.
Yeah,
I'm
that
gonna
is
play an
one thing
unclaimed
about
territory
Grixis
and
is
two elves.
it's
Okay.
really difficult for them to
Play
just put a
elves with
game
these
out of
shadows at
reach
end of turn.
because they
End of
have no
turn.
life gain. So um, there's kind of always a chance as long as Johnny can get on the board that he'll be able to Zerg Quentin
I'll go
out.
to 17.
Yeah, and I know that Quinton is playing Force of Negations. There are going to be Cryptics in there, but sometimes as the Elves player, you can get your opponent down pretty low, and then they're going to have plenty of removal spells left, but you can just play something like your Shaman that drains your opponent and can just kind of cheese out a victory that would have seemed like you were in an unwinnable situation. Because you can't Force of Negation a creature.
We get steam vents.
True. So Quentin is fetch shocking at end of turn here.
Bet that Elves of Deep Shadow is going to eat a Lightning Bolt.
And I will lightning bolt your elves deep shadow.
Does that come in
Absolutely.
untapped?
Yeah, I paid 2 life for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm at 17. Cool. And then I'll go to my turn.
This is what a good start looks like for Quentin. Pretty important that he is able to interact early. Elves is a critical mass deck, and if you can slow their early plays, you can really pull away with Grixis control.
Yeah, if Quentin is able to resolve something like a Planeswalker with Johnny not having a board, Elves isn't going to have a hasty way to deal with a Planeswalker unless you're holding up something like Collected Company.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
And we can see that Quentin actually shocked that last turn, and that's because he's holding up a new card from Eldraine, Drown in the Lock. This is kind of a card that's brought people back to Grixis control, I think. A lot of people are really excited about the possibilities of this card.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
You don't get a
interesting
1/1.
to see all the
don't
reverse,
control it.
like threshold style cards that are in
And pass.
Throne, where it matters how many cards are in your opponent's graveyard and not your graveyard. But Drown in the Lock wasn't able to counter that
Alright,
Dwindon's
I'm
lead
back.
or to remove it from play quite yet.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would have fired it off if I were Quentin at this point.
I feel like the Dwindon's lead is worth countering if it's going to bring along a buddy, but
Sure.
if it's just hanging out on its own.
Heritage Druid.
I will respond to that.
So we have a response here.
I'll counter it.
All right, it's going to get countered.
Counter target spell CMC less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. You have 1.
Quentin with the
Alright.
perfect counter.
I will play for 1.
Yep.
I will play a Heritage Druid.
So on go to 19, we see another Heritage
And then I
Druid.
will pass the turn.
Okay.
All right, so Johnny's sort of getting close to being able to have access to a lot of mana. One more elf is going to net an additional 3 mana at least. And it looks like Quentin's on Jace, and we have Force of Negation in hand as well, I think.
Was there a Cryptic as well?
Is that Mountain Sign?
There is a Cryptic.
So Quentin's in good shape to stop any of Johnny's kind of top end plays. I think Elves tends to have to resolve kind of one of their payoff cards to really be in good position here.
Spell Snare is the pickup there, so that seems like a easy pitch to Force of Negation if you want to tap out for this Jace.
Cards in hand.
Like Quentin's wondering if he wants to hold up Cryptic Command or play out a Jace, which does get to be interesting decision, especially in this Grixis deck where you, Johnny has basically assembled kind of a Delver, 3 damage each turn, and Quentin's out of removal spells. So, do you want to get a Planeswalker on the board, or do you want to hold up a counter spell when your opponent might just play another 1-drop?
I think I'd hold up a counter spell here if I were Quentin. Johnny's at 2 damage a turn right now, and that's Quentin has done most of the damage to himself from his lands, but he's still sitting at a comfortable 14.
I'll go to combat.
Sure.
Declare attackers.
Yep, I'll take 3. I'll go to 11.
It looks like Quentin's taking 3, going to 11. Okay, so right now I kind of like Cryptic to bounce Heritage Druid and draw a card, but Quentin's just going to draw another card.
Couple of spell snares rotting in hand.
Yeah. So that's why I would have kind of liked bouncing the Heritage Druid and drawing a card, is that then you could play Jace without fear of it being removed from an attack if you then minus again.
Wouldn't the
Pretty
elite
sad that I don't
take
like
care of
that
it
eventually.
potentially?
I mean, that's
The Elite's just a 2-power creature. So let's say if you bounce Heritage Druid, and then Quentin's turn, he can play Jace and not minus it, and just 0 it to draw cards.
Ah, I see what you're saying. Got you.
tap. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So yeah, like right now, basically Quentin spent 4 mana to Brainstorm and Fog for a turn.
Yeah. Which, you know, all things considered isn't terrible, but if Johnny is able to resolve something like a Beast Whisperer this turn and get some value out of it, he could definitely get punished. Although Quentin does have Collected Company or any sort of non-creature spell covered.
And Johnny's in an interesting spot here where, you can just attack to take care of that Jace, or you can maybe
I'm gonna tap 3 elves I can
generate a bunch of mana and play out more
3
cards in
mana.
your hand
Yep.
without being afraid of a
play
counter
Legion
spell.
Stampede.
I will force pitching spell.
Pardon me?
Well, that was
Force pitching spell.
I don't know what that means.
Oh no. So yeah, Johnny.
And countering this.
Maybe Johnny has been out of the loop for a bit here. Force of Negation kind of catching him by surprise here, and leaving the Jace on the battlefield, which maybe all Quentin needs to turn the corner here.
It's not good for me. It's not looking good for me.
Yeah, we've got 2 Cryptics in hand and a Tassiger, so yeah, I feel like Quentin is able to deploy his Tassiger, which is basically going to brick wall and attack unless Johnny wants to go down on creatures and then still be able to hold Cryptic up. Hopefully, depending on what this Jace Brainstorm does.
Return it to your hand.
Oh.
That's kind of surprising.
And then I will cast Tasker the Golden Fang, exile.
Although Quentin does play Elves, so certainly, if Quentin's making this play,
All right, untap.
probably has a good reason for it. Can you see a reason to, rather than just brainstorming there, to bounce that Heritage
Yeah,
Druid?
well, because Johnny's going to have to recast his Heritage Druid, so you can counter and draw at that point, and then he isn't going to be able to chain together that many spells, even if he has another Heritage Druid in hand, and Jace is going to be safe.
Heritage Druid again?
I will cast Cryptic Command. I'll choose counter and return this to your hand.
So we're going to get a counter bounce here.
And counter?
I don't like that one,
Yeah.
because now Johnny's going to get to plays at Dwinnen's Lead and get a buddy to come along with it.
Right.
If you were going to make that play, I would have bounced the
I'll recast
Land
it.
War Elves, but I don't even think I would have done
I
that.
take a life for that.
Yep, you're at 17.
And then
So the Elite comes back down with a buddy this time. Quentin's still in pretty good shape here. Active Jace on board, Cryptics in hand,
Sure.
and a Tassiger.
Ooh. I think we see an Into the Story there. Also another one of those cards where it matters how many spells your opponents have in the
A lot
graveyard.
of people do that with their cards.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Uh,
One of those things.
yeah.
Johnny asking why Quentin is shuffling cards. Quentin says one of those things.
I hadn't actually even taken a close look at the art on this card. Pretty
It's
cool.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even recognize Jason Rainville. It's not even an artist that I am
How many cards do you
familiar
have in
with.
your graveyard? 3?
Got some good artists coming into.
Yeah, it's a
MTG
really
of late.
good sort of looks like maybe oil painting in the actual book, but then maybe a little computer work with the library book
Untap?
placement. I don't know, it's cool art. I like it a lot.
Play a land for turn?
Sure.
So Quentin's going to be able to fetch up a Mystic Sanctuary, put this Cryptic on top if he wants. Quentin might do something like activate a Tasigur on the end step and seeing what gets milled over. And yeah, that's Johnny doesn't elect to cast any spells this turn.
Yeah, a lot of free value sitting on the board for Quentin here, and he's basically just trying to, like I would say turn the corner, but I feel like he's already turned the corner, and he's just trying to keep Johnny from actually deploying anything that matters.
Yeah, it does feel like Quentin has this locked up as long as he doesn't open himself up to like resolve Shaman of the Pack at some point.
Play Shaman to the pack.
I will cast this, choosing counter draw.
Quentin well aware of the payoffs.
Okay.
Fetches
So
in
counters that, and
response,
then
so
you're doing
holds
what?
priority here.
I'm going to draw a card, so I'm going to put Mystic Sanctuary into play. It enters untapped. I'm going to put Cryptic Command on top of my deck. This one. And then I'm going to draw.
So this is a pretty neat loop here where Quentin casts Cryptic Command to counterspell and draw a card, held priority, and then fetched so that he could then grab a Mystic Sanctuary untapped, and Cryptic Command goes back on top of the deck, which is then drawn. What a deal.
It shouldn't be allowed.
I've been playing a little bit with Mystic Sanctuary, and it
Cryptic Command. Sorry, I forget.
real interesting sequencing stuff, especially when you have a Jace around and fetch lands.
Yeah.
Got to be careful not to screw it up, but if you don't, it's a really powerful
Passing,
interaction.
attacking, what's going on?
Oh, sorry. I'll pass the turn.
Okay.
And Johnny will go ahead and pass to Quentin here. Yeah, I almost feel like we're at that kind of like scholastic moment where unless Johnny can double spell with a very good couple of spells, Quentin's just going to kind of keep pulling ahead incrementally, and once Johnny loses a significant amount of his board, he runs out of gas pretty fast.
Yeah, and I think we might see Quentin do something interesting here, like Thought Scouring Johnny, so that at some point Quentin can cast this into the story with a reduced cost.
Yeah, let's just look at that again. So we need 7 or more cards in Johnny's graveyard, sitting on 4 currently. So Thought Scour won't quite get us there, but Thought Scour plus a removal spell, which I believe Quentin has Fatal Push in hand, would get us there.
And, you know, Quentin could just cast it into the story with mana. There's one in the hand. But to be able to, like, say, triple spell and then still, you know, draw your cards is probably where I would want to be at this point.
Plus, if you cast it for 7, you're not getting that sweet, sweet value.
Love the value. I guess that's why you play Grixis.
Yeah.
Haven't seen a Kolaghan's Command yet.
Oh, nor a Snapcaster.
2, 3. I'm going to play Elvish Archdruid.
I will.
Quentin's going to have a response here. I think Elvish Archdruid counts as a payoff.
Are you just going to continue to bounce that to the top of your library? How does that work?
I mean, I could. I'm going to choose counter and bounce this.
And then how does that go to the top of your hand?
I play this, and if I control 3 other islands, I put an instant or sorcery from my graveyard.
So Quentin kind of explaining the sad, sad loop
Oh,
that
is
he
that
is
the new
going
item that you
to
set?
continue doing to Johnny here. And Johnny kind of realizing
nice.
Yeah.
what that means for him, which is that Quentin's going to kind of stay up on cards continually. And
Which, it's also really interesting with Mystic Sanctuary
Alright,
how
I'm too late.
you can
Do that.
effectively
No, sorry, never mind. Sorry,
like
sorry,
loop
sorry,
cards
sorry.
instead of using a Snapcaster where it's going to get exiled, because the card just goes in your hand, it'll go back to your graveyard,
Right.
and so you can just like keep casting a lightning bolts like, indefinitely.
To kill what?
Do it instantly.
so Quentin is going to go ahead and fire off that push here and probably Thought Scour.
Thought Scour you.
And Thought Scour is Johnny. So we have achieved the 7 cards in yard metric.
Alright, you're good.
So Quentin will be able to kind of into the story whenever he feels appropriate here to re-up his hand. And I imagine that would draw a concession from Johnny. But
Oh, we're going to get into the story and then to be able to like fetch another Mystic Sanctuary and put it back on top, perhaps.
Put Cryptic Command on top of my deck.
All right, we'll just get Cryptic on top.
Brainstorm to pick it up. Oh, the value.
Sure.
Johnny's going to take a look at Mystic Sanctuary. Oddly enough, a common from Thrones of Eldraine.
It does seem like the common land cycle is stronger than the rare land cycle.
So,
in Eternal formats, at least.
yeah, I feel like that's only true of the blue land. I kind of feel like all the other ones are pretty mopey, but you know, blue gets the best cards always, so it's whatever.
That's not the case. Blue gets the best card like once every 2 years.
But they can find it 3 times as often as every other color.
Oh, we're getting a counter spell, bounce the land again.
Yeah. Okay.
Johnny is Johnny scoops. I think that's an advisable move.
Yeah, basically Quentin was going to be able to get a Cryptic Command every turn with that loop. So it's going to counter whatever Johnny does. And then with the Jace active, be able to be up a card. You're going to eventually go up lands and just... I don't really see how Johnny gets around that at all.
So Travis, I have good news for Johnny.
What's the good news?
Well, the good news is that Johnny is running 2 chokes in his sideboard.
Choke him out. Yeah, if you're playing any deck that's on green and you're not playing islands, definitely run 2 or 3 chokes, especially right now in Modern. There's a lot of islands going around there.
Yeah, people got the island bug. You got to punish them for the island bug.
So it looks like for Quentin, we got 2 engineered explosives, a couple surgicals, dismember, collective brutality ×2. Got a couple Liliana of the Last Hopes, a Braid, Ceremonious Rejection, and a few cards that are hiding a little bit. But a lot of these seem pretty good. Explosives is great against Elves usually. Collective Brutality can tag Lead the Stampede and kill a creature. Liliana of the Last Hope is just a house that pinging down all the 1 toughness little guys out there. Even a Braid's an additional removal spell. A bunch of it seems good.
Yeah, it all seems medium when you compare it to the power of Choke, though, which has really nice flavor text, I would add.
And great art.
Yes. Therese always delivers.
Yeah, I've been tempted to buy out all the chokes locally just so people won't go into a game shop right before an event and think, you know what, I should probably play some more chokes in my sideboard.
I don't know what to do with my board. Might as well get more chokes. I think that's always a good choice.
I mean, there's worse things in life.
So yeah, if Johnny's able to resolve a choke, which a lot of times if you're playing against Elves, you might side out some number of counters, but it's been interesting how the Modern format's changed with Force of Negation, because you do really want to be countering the Collected Companies or Lead the Stampedes. Traditionally that's meant some dispels in the sideboard that you might side out your clunkier counter spells for, but now that Force of Negation is a card, I bet Quentin's going to leave those in as well, and that also, opposed to something like Dispel, is going to tag Choke as well.
Yeah, and I do kind of wonder, seeing Johnny's sideboard, and kind of listening to Johnny, it sounds like he maybe hasn't played Modern in a bit lately, and I could definitely see Veil of Summer being a significant upgrade to his sideboard, and a card that would be fantastic in a match like this, helping him to resolve something like a choke, and or preventing his hand from getting torn apart with discard or counters or what have you.
Yeah, Veil of Summer is an amazing Magic card, also a very expensive uncommon. I think it's like $7, $8, $9 now, something like that.
Worth every penny.
And you see decks, from Elves to Jund to Tron's playing 4 of them in the sideboard these days. It's a really strong Magic card. Okay, so Quentin's making a choice to interrupt Johnny's mana development here, which, depending on how much removal you have against Elf's deck, it is a question of, do you want to, just kill the turn 1 Elf, or are you going to wait for one of the payoff cards?
I think given Quentin's hand, it's rather slow moving. And if Quentin can just kind of keep Johnny on a slow, constant grind of elves, he's going to have a better job interacting. He's sitting on all lands plus a K command and a Thought Scour. So Quentin really needs to draw into some action here.
Tap. Draw.
Oh, curious. I thought Quentin might Thought Scour himself to see if he drew a removal spell to then kill that Elves of Deep Shadow with a fetch land up, but Quentin decides to pass.
I think most of his removal is going to be instant speed, right? So he could still do that. I guess Johnny is going to get access to the mana here.
Yeah, that was. I mean, if you're going to bolt the turn 1 elf,
Yeah.
might be a turn 2 play that one would make, but I'm sure Quentin has reasons.
End of turn.
Wow.
Okay, it definitely have a collected company in Johnny's hand if we're passing
Yeah.
right now. And right now is when I would want to
Yes.
resolve it.
Yep.
That Thought Scour on the stack, if it in fact is in Johnny's hand, which we don't know.
But, you know, what kind of elf's hand plays nothing with 4 mana up?
Yeah.
It seems like almost impossible unless Johnny just kept like absolute like all lands and 2 elves, which seems insane.
If you do have the choke and collected company in your hand, I could see a reason to maybe wait until Quentin's turn to then cast it, hoping that Quentin will tap out
Sure.
if you value choke that highly, but also it gets awkward with Force of Negation too.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think I would have resolved while the resolving was good
Yeah, it's alright though.
if I were on Johnny's side.
We're playing against, you know,
The
fierce competition over here.
fierce competition.
I'm gonna play engineering explosives on board.
And we get an EE on 1.
In your end step,
Sure.
I'm gonna play Collected Company.
Sure. So you're gonna get a 19.
All right.
Okay.
Johnny does have the Coco.
And we don't have a counter spell there. You know, as much as I like Quentin as a person and I hate choke as a card, kind of want to see a choke come down.
Yeah. I mean, you could be anybody. Seeing a choke come down, there's nothing quite like it.
It's
The
sort of
green blood moon.
like my love of blowing up lands. Choke sort of, rubs me in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Choke's a great card. So it's back when color hosers had teeth. Kind of surprised. I guess Johnny may have had slim pickings here. Goes ahead and grabs the Heritage Druid, which is going to get taken out by the Engineer Explosives here.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a hand that's also full of 1-drops too, maybe you're fine, like baiting the explosives and then, playing out the rest of your hand.
And then it'll be your turn.
Alright, untap. Play land.
Yep.
Elves.
I want to main phase a Coco if you have it now.
Yeah, gotta see a pretty good follow-up here, I think, for Johnny to something like a Lead the Stampede. Just anything to re-up on cards to try and pull away. Quentin is sitting on almost empty besides that K command. And this is not an awesome situation for the K command because Quentin does not have a creature to return currently.
Play that dude. Sure.
Elvish Clan Caller.
Okay, so we're going to get to do some maybe
Alright,
clan color
tap
chains.
That guy. Sure. Generate 3 green, 1 black, and play Stain the Mind.
Stain the Mind.
Ooh.
Name Cryptic Command.
Okay.
Wow, we got to stain the mind naming cryptic.
So
Johnny was like, you know what sucked last game? Having this card cast every single turn.
So I love that Johnny's doing this. I think it's a fun play to make. In truth, it can be rough to approach a matchup by deciding you don't like a card and then removing it with something like Stain the Mind. You're paying 5 mana for potentially no card advantage when something like a Lead the Stampede or another card might be quite a bit more effective in a situation like this. So I can certainly understand Johnny's sentiment with wanting to get rid of a good card like Cryptic Command. But I think in this case he would be better served playing some payoffs that would help him to just pull further ahead.
100% agree. I feel like Stain the Mind is a really sweet sideboard card in Elves, especially when you play against some of the fringe convoy matchups. Like, you know, if you're playing against Ad Nauseam, they can't really beat that. Or it's very hard to beat that card. And, you know, certain matchups, they're going to hinge on a couple cards. So it's not a bad sideboard card, but yeah, usually in the kind of fair matchups, I'm not super into bringing it in, but, you know, Johnny was probably real grumpy at that Cryptic Command loop last game.
And Bogdan pointing out, it looks like Johnny may have underpaid for that Stain the Mind. However, he did have the Elves to...
Okay, so seems like if I'm Johnny, I'm going to activate. Could we have activated?
Yes, it was 6 to activate, so could have activated then. Probably would have been a good choice to try and activate the Elvish Clan Caller at that point, but looks like we are past it. Couple stumbles here for Johnny, and Quentin with a Snapcaster in hand, he's going to be able to Snapcaster K-Command.
Hey, so it looks like chat was saying that Johnny only paid 4 mana. I think he actually tapped the Archdruid for mana and did not use it for Convoke there, so
right.
I think we paid the correct amount of mana for that Stain the Mind.
Okay.
Combat.
Before block, I will flash and Snapcaster.
Quentin's gonna snap. So if you're Quentin here, should you target the K command here, block with the Snapcaster, and then cast the K command in second?
100%. Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, to get the snap back.
Loop in the Snapcaster, maybe take an additional point of damage there.
Yeah.
Additional 2 points of damage, basically. But then you'd have a Snapcaster left over in your hand, and you know your opponent doesn't have anything.
Right.
I'm going to put Colligan's Command back on top.
Or we could just fetch a Mystic Sanctuary and put the K command back on top.
Was Cryptic Command a choice for me?
I think it was good. They're all good. I don't know.
Quentin kind of...
Mystic Sanctuary?
So, yeah, Johnny, if you do go back and watch this, I think probably Stain the Mind was just not the right sideboard card to bring in for this matchup.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It just like
Grixis control is full of value cards. Full of value cards. So taking out one of their value cards, it's kind of like you're just taking a drop of rain out of the storm.
Yeah, there's so many 2-for-1s. There's Snapcaster, K command, Cryptic Command, and Mystic Sanctuary acts kind of as a 2-for-1 card.
I'm going to cast Colligan's Command. I'm going to have you discard and pick up my Snapcaster.
So Johnny can cast this in response.
Yes.
Okay.
So Johnny can cast the Collected Company in response, which is
That's the
probably
best you
the
could have
best
asked
top
for,
decky,
yeah.
yeah. What gets Johnny back in this game, Travis? Can you think of some elves that would get him back?
Azuri is pretty sweet.
Yeah, a Beast Whisperer plus some other elves might.
No, put it in the play. Yeah.
Okay.
You're good. You won't discard anything. You won't have any cards in your hands.
Alright. I'll put Llanowar and Dwayne's Elite.
Sure.
Okay. Do you know the ruling on this, Travis? Does the Dwynen's Elite see the Llanowar elves and add the?
Well, no, that doesn't matter. They enter the battlefield
Okay.
at the same time.
Looks like Quentin's explaining the ruling here.
This checks when it's entering. So it's not entering the battlefield. It's an ETB, so you get it. It's fine. You're good.
So Dwynen's Elite checks
If you control another,
upon entering the battlefield, and it will see the Llanowar elves and thus
Yeah.
trigger to get the extra elf.
Off you go.
Can we pull up Dwynen's Elite on their little card fetcher? I feel like
Yeah. Exactly. It's fine.
If I can spell it.
Again, in your draw step, so after you draw your card, I'm going to cast Snapcaster Mage. I'm going to try and call this.
And make me discard my
I'm going to shock this and make you discard.
shock that.
Yep.
oh, we get a choke discarded right there.
Well, Quentin will know that a choke is around. So there's your Dwinnen's Elite, not the art that Johnny's playing.
All right, I'll
Yeah, I
go
think
combat
that's
and
a
swing
dual
with
deck
that.
art there.
I'll block.
Thought you would.
Okay, so yeah, you definitely get the token in
ahead.
that case.
Thanks.
So we've reached about the same
missed the
situation that we reached in the previous game.
I could have brought another clan caller back
Yeah,
and killed
yeah,
it.
Yep.
Johnny kind of recognizing that he could have chained clan colors a little bit earlier
He's
in
a
the
better
game.
Magic card player than
These are the sorts of plays that really cascade and have kind of like led Johnny to the point that he's at. When you're playing any of these kind of early game value decks like Johnny's playing, you really have to sequence properly against a deck like Grixis that's going to continue to 2-for-1 you.
4 damage. I will bolt this guy.
You bolt that guy?
Yep. So I'll take 1.
Yeah, when you're playing a bunch of like 1/1s that add mana, basically you have to extract all the value out of your payoff cards as possible, and if you stumble against a deck that is built around extracting value out of each of their cards,
Where's my card?
you're gonna be in trouble.
I couldn't stop.
End of turn, cast Snapcaster Mage.
Okay.
Thought Scour myself.
Quentin goes for Snap, Thought Scour.
Drop a turn.
I was
Quentin
hoping
also
to choke
sitting
out
on
that
empty,
island,
but finds a K command,
but you played the.
and also has a Snap in graveyard. So
Well, that's a Plague Engineer on Elves,
and
so
this game
you can
is over.
back him up.
Yeah. And then I will attack you for 2.
All right.
So if I'm Johnny, I probably just pick up my cards here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pick up.
Okay. Good games.
And
Thank
Johnny
you very much.
picks up his cards. Quentin takes the game.